All right, this is another of the long ones, the ones that aren't camouflages but are just stories. This one is called The Phantom Punch, and I'm just going to read two excerpts that show up in the song lyrics. So the first one is when the main character is a kid. When Joel was 10, he saw a boxing movie on TV. It was about some guy who improbably goes into boxing to win money for his saintly wife and sickly son. It made a big impression, probably in no small part because the main character, the hero, was named Joel too. He talked about the movie for weeks. When October came around, his father suggested Joel should be a boxer for Halloween. His father almost always dictated this choice of Halloween costume. It wasn't that he wasn't allowed to choose for himself. It was just that his own ideas could never match his father's in terms of imagination and enthusiasm, or the unstated fact that money would be no object in seeing the vision come true. So Joel was a boxer. His mother sewed his name on the back of his bathrobe, the one he wore on Christmas morning and maybe one or two other times a year when he was sick. On the toy aisle of a store, his father found him a pair of ridiculously oversized boxing gloves, two fat pillows really, stuck like giant marshmallows at the end of his stick-like arms. Halloween night, his father sat him down at his mother's vanity and applied various makeups to his face. He gave Joel a black eye, with some flesh-colored putty to make it look swollen and a couple of band-aids. His father gave him a broken nose. His father created a deep bruise that covered an entire cheek, a cut, a bleeding eyebrow, a blacked-out missing tooth. The joke, his father told him, as Joel looked at himself in the mirror, was to tell people, "You should see the other guy." All right, so as a teenager, he goes into boxing for real. And in the song, there's a little description of the place he trains, where he works out. So this is that moment in the story. He was one of three white kids at the gym, and the other two were so much older than Joel, it was as much of a gulf as skin color. There was one African American, one Asian American, everyone else was Mexican. Being a minority was a whole new experience for Joel. Sometimes he felt incredibly self-conscious, like he was just one giant walking zit. But most of the time, Joel felt invisible, as if he literally was white, and nobody could do anything other than look through him. There were probably a half dozen or so trainers in the gym at any given time, but it was hard to tell because the gym was not only a place to work out and box, it was a place to socialize. All kinds of men loitered around. There were old men scratching lottery tickets with quarters, damp stubs of cigars in their mouths. There were young men in expensive-looking suits and flashing expensive-looking watches. There were even little kids running all over and pestering anyone who would listen for loose change to feed the vending machines out by the check-in desk. So the gym was loud. Several of the boxers would often bring boom boxes and play them simultaneously, the strange music joining the general noise of conversation and laughter, the clang of weights, the whistle and snap of jump ropes, all echoing, amplified in the stark acoustics of the wide, high-ceilinged room. His instruction was, to say the least, informal. When Joel arrived at his appointed time, someone who was hanging out by the main desk would detach himself from it for long enough to point him to some exercise, which he would do until someone came by and pointed him to something else. Joel enjoyed the exercises, though, straightforward and methodical. They afforded a kind of satisfaction he hadn't experienced before. But what he really wanted was a chance at the speed bag. There were two in the gym. Small pear-shaped pieces of stuffed leather that you punched in a rhythm of rights and lefts until the bag was nothing but a blur, the only evidence of its existence, the sound of it slapping against the top of the support. The bags were off toward the back of the gym, but they were essentially its center. The older boys stood around them, kidding with each other and waiting for their turn, often shouting, and sometimes even a small fight broke out when someone thought someone else was hogging the bag. "It's good for nothing but show," one of the trainers said to Joel when he asked about giving it a try. "That's why they call it a peanut bag. You waste your time on that, and that's what you become, a cacahuate. Instead of the speed bag, Joel was most often put on the heavy bag, a long fat cylinder that hung down from the ceiling on a chain, dull and dense like a dead body. When he punched it, an electric current shot up from his wrists and into his shoulders, where the ache would live for days.